Hi and welcome to Little Bits Honeybee's YouTube channel. I'm the Skinny Bee Man. Viewer request, they wanted to know about the different strains of bees I've run. I've kind of avoided it because it's my opinion. Some of it's scientific, test I've done here. Some of it's just opinion. And it took a lot of effort to put it all together. I haven't had the time, but today it's about 112 heat index here, and I'm kind of taking it easy. So we're going to attempt to do this. Hopefully I don't mess it up. And these are not in any order. They're just the way I wrote them down and what I think I know about each one. We'll start out with the Sukobi Carnolians. They either come from the Czech Republic or the Republic of Georgia. The Caucasians come from one and the Carney comes from the other, and I can't ever remember which one. They're a very gentle bee, very calm on the frames. What I mean about calm on the frames, when you hold them up, they're not running around all over the place. They're not dripping off the frames like water, and good on that. And I've outlined these all in the same category as we go down through the list for you want to compare it. You make a big brood nest, lots of brood. Make lots of honey. They're not VSH, which that's a varroa sensitive hygienic. They don't pull larvae out of the cells that's got mites on them and discard them. They're not chewers like the Martha Carpenter and the Purdue. I'm going to say that I have not tested them for sure, but I'm going to guess that the total mite control is somewhere in the 30% range. They take care of 30% of the mites without being treated. Wintering, they're above average winter. They winter pretty good. Spring startup, mid-early spring startup. They're not a real big out of the gates just as soon as the snow leaves the ground, just start pumping out brood. They're not too bad about inclined to swarm. Just a good all-around bee. The next one would be the Sukobi Caucasian. And there again, it's either from the Czech Republic or Republic of Georgia, whichever. Oh, I left the color out on the Sukobi. Sukobi queens will be a dark colored bee with a lighter brownish gold bands on it, typically. The Caucasian, should be jet black. Gentlest bee that I know in the yard. They're just a pleasure to work. Frames, you pull a frame out, they're just locked on the frame. The queen's laying, she'll go ahead and lay. The bees do their thing. They just real nice bees. They build a big brood nest, lots of honey, and there again, they're not hygienic, not chewers. I'm going to give them an estimated score of total mite control without treated, 30%. Winters above average. Very slow to start up in the spring. They're just not early starters, but once they start, a lot of times they'll pass the other boxes. I mean, they really go at it when they go, but they're not very, very fast starter about laying brood and building a nest up. Hardly ever swarm. One of the drawbacks to them is they make tons of propolis. They glue everything down, and I mean thick. It's just everywhere. A lot of people call them the red clover bee. They've got longer tongues than all the rest of the bees, and they can work red clover. In fact, it's the only bee that I know of that can work red clover efficient. They do much better than most bees in the wintertime, as far as winter. Really good about that. Okay, we move on to the buckfast. The buckfast originally come out of England. Brother Adam, he was a monk that went all over the world trying to make a better bee, and he's got a pretty good bee. But our stock, the only way we can get it now, comes out of Denmark into Canada. And then I can get them from Canada, but I can't get breeders from Canada. F1 daughters, be the first daughters out of the breeders, is the only thing they'll allow to ship into the United States. So therefore, the buckfast can be any color. They're a gentle bee. They're average calmness on the frames. They'll move a little bit, but they're not terrible bad. Above average brood. Above average honey. There again, they're not hygienic, not chewers. Total mite control without treatment, I'm going to guess, is around 30%. They're good overwinterers. Mid to early spring startup's pretty good, and not likely to swarm. Now, when I say not likely to swarm, in the spring, you know, you got to watch your boxes. If you get a box just packed and packed and packed and they ain't got room to breathe in there, all bees will swarm. I'm just talking about they're not inclined to swarm. They won't get a box half filled up and want to leave. Next on the list would be Purdue Ankle-Biters. Of course, they come out of Purdue University, Lafayette, Indiana. Usually dark, but they can be any color. They're a little more aggressive bee than what I would call gentle. I'm just going to say they're just average gentleness. Unless you was lucky enough to get queens from 2016 and they was meaner than snakes. They're a little runny on the frames, even a little more than the buckfast. They're a little runny on the frames. I'm going to say they're average brood nest. Honey producing, they're below average honey. They just not the greatest honey producers. They're not hygienic, but they are chewers. And they'll chew about 50% of the mites that you'll find that's fell on the bottom of the box will be chewed on tests that I've run. Total mite control, I would give them somewhere in the range of 45%. You still got to treat them. They're not treatment free. They do not winter well for me. Some people seem to have good luck with them, but I have very hard trouble getting them through the winter. They're pretty average on spring startup. Pretty well typical of an Italian bee on swarming. The Vsh Italians. The only person licensed to sell VSH breeders is Adam Finkelstein out of South Carolina. They can be any color. They're a gentle bee. Average calmness on the frames. They're very hygienic. They're about a 70% hygienic bee. About uncapping, checking for mites. If they got mites in the cell, they'll pull that larva out and throw it. They're not a chewer. Total mite control on them, I'm going to say they'll take care of 60 to 70% of the mites without treating. They're average winter. Pretty early to start up in the spring, and about an average swarmer. VSH Carnies. They're again, the only ones that's licensed to sell them is Adam Finkelstein out of South Carolina. That come out of the USDA breeding program. They're usually pretty dark bee with a little striping on them. Very gentle, calm on the frames, average brood. They're again very hygienic. They're probably in that 70% range on hygienic. They're not a chewer. Total mite control, I would give them 60-70% of killing mites, not with no treatment. They're average winterer and an average about swarming. Then we get to the Saskatraz. Saskatraz, I've not run them very long. Can't say a whole lot about them, other than they originated in Canada. Oliveris in California is the only place licensed to sell them. The Canadian breeder, that's the only person he sells to is Oliveris. They can be any color. They're a little bit below average gentle. They're a little bit hotter bee of what I found, what I'm running. And like I say, I've not run very many of them, haven't run them very long. They're fairly runny on the frames. Average brood. The honey, I really can't say about the honey. I've not had them long enough to really give an honest opinion on how much honey they make. They're not hygienic, not a chewer. Total mite control, I'm guessing it's around 30% without treating. They're a good winter. They come from the north, so they ought to winter really well. Winter startup, I haven't had them through the spring, so I really can't say what they do on about early startup. Not too inclined to swarm. Okay, we move on to the Martha Carpenter. It originated in upstate New York by Bill and Martha Carpenter. It was an open bred breeding program. They can be any color. Average gentleness, average commonness on frame, big brood nest, good honey producer. They're not hygienic, and they're great chewers. Ones I've tested in the yard, and I've tested several, they're about 80% chewers. And they even will chew small hive beetles. I found when I put a sticky board under the hive, I find small hive beetle shells that they've chewed them out. I'd give them a total mite control without treatment of 75%. They're an average getting through the winter. Spring startup is pretty much average. Now, here's the ones I'm going to catch some flack on, but this is my opinion, and I've run a lot of package bees over the years for different reasons. But good old packaged Italian queen. Nothing special about them. They can be any color. And they're gentle most of the time. Every once in a while you get a hot bash, but most of the time they're gentle. A little runny most of the time on the frames. But here's where they excel in. They excel in making brood. You want colonies to make brood, that's what you want. All the guys that sell packages, that's what they're in the business for, selling brood. So over the years, they've selected their strongest, best brood producers, and they've put that trait in their bees. They'll make so much brood that, and the next factor is honey. They make hardly any honey. They'll make so much brood that they'll starve themselves out through the winter. They just don't winter well because there's so many bees. But they have their purpose in an all-around yard. I run a bunch in my out yards. Don't run them in here because of some other reasons, but they're great for making splits. great for making just support hives. You need some bees to put in a box, brood to steal. They're good for that. They're not hygienic. They're not sure. Total mite control is probably 25%. Probably below average wintering. Very early startup. They start up earlier than any other bee that I know of, and they start up real early. In fact, sometimes they'll start up so early that they'll get a cold snap, and all the brood they laid will get chill brood. Their average swarmer, and this is what I see. They're a lazy bee. They will. They're not as active and out looking for nectar as a lot of the other bees. They're weak flyers. They don't fly very far. Not like the Carnies and the Caucasians who fly long distances. They're pretty weak flyers, and they're bad about robbing. That's why I don't keep them in this yard. They're the world's worst about robbing. When it starts getting in a dearth, they'll look in every hive, try to get in and rob it out. Then we get to my breeding program. I've been working on now for about 3 years. Probably all these other bees I will run purebreds in the yard for breeding purposes, but next year I'm probably just going to sell little bits honeybees, diversified bees, because I think it's got a lot of great aspects of a lot of different bees. And the logistics of me keeping track of all these bees and selling pure stock out is just overwhelming. Paperwork, and then in the mating yards, mating boxes. Everybody wants 1 or 2 of each one of them, and I might have 6 of them, but I don't have the 7th and 8th one, so they tie up my mating boxes till I can fulfill an order. So next year things are going to be a little different on that. But the queens I'm going to sell next year, I've got 3 crosses made, AI crosses. I'm going to try to get the 4th cross in before it gets too bad. So they'll be crossed with 4 different purebred lines. Couldn't be any color, but they're probably going to be predominantly dark, a dark bee. Very, very gentle. When I'm talking about this, I'm talking about the 2nd cross. They're the only hive that's strong enough to test, and the 3rd cross is just started laying, so I can't evaluate them. But this is what I've come to find out on the 2nd cross. They're calm on the frames. Brood's above average. Honey's above average. They're about 60%. Now I've run tests on the 2nd cross. They're about 60% hygienic and about 80% chewers. Do a real good job. I'll tell you a little bit more about the test here in a minute on them. I'm going to give them a total mite control without being treated in somewhere in an 80 to 90% range. They're above average on wintering. Mid-early spring build-up, not likely to swarm. And this bee will represent 4 countries. It'll represent Czech Republic, Republic of Georgia, Denmark, and the United States. So, I mean, there's some advantage to that, because the bees in most cases has been landlocked to the United States, so there's quite a bit of inbreeding, and you get sex alleles, and it's been found that just 1 cross out of the country brings the sex alleles up in the bees, and it makes them a more vibrant, healthier colony. That's about all I got to say about that, other than the testing. The testing, I put a sticky board under 2 hives on the 2nd cross daughters, and left it 10 days. I think one had 12 mite drops, the other had 15 mite drops on the sticky board. 80% of them, all the mites that dropped on the bottom of the boards either had all their legs missing or the bodies chewed on them. So they're real good chewers. I took that sticky board out and put a new sticky board under it and flash treated with formic acid. And I had a mite drop of 2 on one of those hives, a mite drop of 4 on one of those hives. Then I immediately took the sticky boards out, went in and done an alcohol wash on those 2 hives, and I had 0 mites. So, and they was untreated, so they done a real good job taking care of the mites on their own. But I hope you enjoyed it, and like I say, a lot of this is my opinion. Some of it's been tested out, not all of it, and but this is what I see in the bees that I raise here, how they act, and whatever, this, that, and the other. So if you enjoy the videos, hit the subscribe button, the bell next to it. You get notified when I put out more videos. Thanks for watching, and you have a great day.